Okay, folks, welcome, commissioners and staff. I'll call the meeting of the Davenport Housing Commission for Monday, April 18th, 2022, here at 4 o'clock. I guess our first order of business is attendance. Joyce? Here. Gary?
Here.
Yolanda? And Leslie. Here. And I, Matt Wissingham here, so we have a full house, which is nice. The more ideas, the better. So, our first order of business are the minutes for the March meeting. Let's have people had a chance to look those over and ask if anyone has any additions or corrections. And if not, if someone would make a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion to approve the March meeting.
Second.
Great. And I noticed here, Yolanda, they even have the minute that you arrived, 4:04. So somebody was being pretty accurate. So. Anyway, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for the March meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those will pass. Now on to the financial reports for March. Bruce, is there anything you want to mention in there that?
No, and I want to apologize too in getting them out late. Couple of apologies. One, getting them out late. We'll work on that for future meetings. Secondly, I don't know, am I on? Yeah, you can hear me. I don't know if the preference of the commission was to also have the heritage in there, but it seemed as if most of our numbers had started dropping off since the sale. So my staff member who's doing the financial reporting now said we may as well remove that unless there's a desire to. So let me know if you'd like that back on. But for this month, I've removed the heritage from the, so if you notice a page missing, that's why. But other than that, yeah, I didn't have anything.
I myself don't see a need. It's not in our purview anymore. And I think, has everything officially wrapped up in your transaction with?
I think there's small hanging on things that may still pop up from time to time about phone systems and, those sorts of things that, we're continuing to work through with Public Works, but I think the financial transaction has pretty much been closed out now, so.
Well, I noticed every once in a while I'll pop into a council meeting and some of the tenants still haven't figured out that the city doesn't have anything to do with it anymore, but I think they just want to vent. I can understand some of their concerns, but Joyce, have you noticed anything in there? You're
Nope, everything looks good to me.
our detailed person, which is great.
Well, I think we're all pretty detailed. It's just.
Yes. No, I wasn't slighting anyone. I guess I was giving her a little extra praise because I'll admit I'm a bit more micro and she seems to, I'm a little bit more macro and she's more micro, which is great. I like people that pay more attention to detail. But if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. And if you don't have any questions or corrections, I'll ask for a motion to pass those reports.
Make a motion that we pass the monthly financials.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and second to approve the financial reports for the month of March. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, those pass. Now we'll go on to the occupancy report. I noticed those 2 units on Elsie that have been empty for a long time, but I remember a few months back, Destiny saying it was hard to get a contractor to rehab those. Just because most of the ones in the area have been busy for various reasons.
That's still the case.
I think it was the case for summer into fall. And then when we started getting feedback from HUD that the approval was coming, I think our public works folks just thought the next buyer plans to rehab anyway, so let's not invest further funding in it at this stage because the ramp up may come up landing about the time that then we have to transition out into a voucher for someone on public housing. So we just made the decision, we're sort of in this transition period for the last few months and trying to figure out what the timing is. And in all honesty, if we would have probably started back in the summer to solicit a contractor to do the work, we probably would have had the work done. They could have got it scheduled, ordered things, and maybe by the spring could have been finished and then would have had a few months before the sale happened. But as it turns out, I have a little update on that too, but on the sale, but at least, we didn't do that, so we're sort of in the holding pattern on those 2 units, so.
Is that one of the properties? Who bought that one up?
That is, I should probably double check, I believe it's EHDG that is acquiring those, it's a duplex. And I know they're planning on doing some, they haven't shared all their detailed plans, but I know for the most part, many of the units they're planning on rehabilitating as soon as they're able to get grant funding. So that's another reason why it sort of makes sense for those what we did to them in the short term might have been torn out and redone in a different way, later, so.
Yeah, I noticed the paper had a pretty good sized article here in the last couple of weeks about that. And I'd been telling some people about it and they saw that and they said, oh, I guess you were right. So. Okay. Well, if nobody has any questions there, I'll ask for a motion to accept the occupancy report for the month of March. Anyone?
Motion to accept the occupancy report totals for
Second.
March.
Okay, great. It's been moved and seconded to approve the occupancy report for the month of March. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Those pass. Now, consideration items here. Did you have something, Bruce, that you wanted to,
No,
or give us an update on those sales? Are they, Has HUD signed off on that yet?
Yes, I can do that. I just noticed that, I don't know why the system put that in there. It's probably user error. But I think it should have just been discussion rather than a discussion and a consideration item, so I don't know.
Okay.
I apologize. But yeah, whichever category you want me to put this under, I'll put it under discussion, I guess, for long-term. A little bit of an update for the commission. And I can't remember, maybe we reported this last meeting or not. Days are flying by much more quickly for Bruce and staff now with Destiny not here, but the HUD has approved the sale,
Okay,
and they set a timeline in motion that still has some fuzziness, mostly dependent upon like when we get the vouchers and how long it takes for us to be able to get through meetings with the vouchers with the tenants so that they know, because they've not used vouchers before. So we need to have those sort of orientation meetings once we get the vouchers. We think we're going to get them, HUD won't confirm this, but we think we could get them in May, could be June, which sets up roughly a 4-month window when they are out on the street. And as we know from past history, some tenants find units fairly quickly. Some of the tenants will be able to remain in the unit that they're in. And some tenants take longer to find units that they're looking for. And our intention is to give the full amount of time that HUD provisions allow them, which would be that full, I think, 4-month period. So depending on when we get them out on the street to when everyone finds units in each of the particular 3 nonprofit buyers, I can fine tune that as we go through here the next few months. But the guess, according to HUD, would be we would likely be conveying all of the units in the October-November time period. So that's sort of the running timeline goal for us at this stage, knowing that if we need to have a little bit more time, we may be able to do that if we can show progress. So in theory, that's, I guess, my little bit of an update for you all. Several of the nonprofits have been, I think maybe you read, they're applying for some grant funding. We took one of the nonprofit buyers through their particular units last week to get some more ideas and measurements together. We're communicating fairly frequently with HUD on how this can all work, and we've had a meeting or two with a nonprofit, so just a lot of activity going on, a lot of planning for how we're going to roll these out and make it easy for them. There's a relocation plan, there's a moving reimbursement, so all those sorts of things we're trying to kind of get in order now. So, and with Destiny gone, and we had another staff member who had an accident out on an inspection on the job, so she's on the mend, but hopefully we'll be back maybe later this week or next week. So we're a little short-staffed right now, but we're getting there. So that's my little bit of an update for you, unless you had any questions for me.
how are you doing those orientation, teaching people about the voucher system? Do they have to come here, or do we have enough staff to send to them if they're, if it's a burden on them, or?
Right, good question. Right now, our intent, and this is the way we've kind of done a lot of tenant interaction before too, there's what I'll call kind of a public component, which is sort of the basics of housing choice vouchers and how they work, right? And how the system, there's some differences with public housing. And some of that is almost where we're thinking we may even be able to do in a couple of 2 or 3 kind of group meetings that at different times of the day or different days of the week, to be able to get the word out a bit more for everybody, and they can kind of hear it all together. And sometimes someone else asking a question is helpful, for others to hear too, if they didn't think of that question. But then a part of it is sort of the break into one-on-one with, what are my rent limits going to be? How does this work for me? Am I able to stay in my unit? If not, You know, do you have any ideas on where I could go, and those sorts of things. So there's a bit of kind of the common discussion, and there's a bit of more of kind of a one-on-one household discussion. So we're not quite sure yet. We're going to be rolling that. I think we're going to roll out the group meetings first, and then maybe have packets. And some folks, I mean, we've been communicating all along. Some of the households will be, you know, maybe looking already because they've heard, you know, and we've prompted them to, you know, keep your eyes out open for that. And then others may wait until and need a little bit more hand holding as we go through. And that's what we're going to be here for, you know. So that's probably the best summary I can give you right now. I'll know more each week. There's seems to be a new new game plan as we go through. I just hope everybody stays healthy.
Does the city have a website or something of Section 8 units that are available in the area? How do people find out about those?
And that's a great question. I'll give you, it's a bit piecemeal. Well, in a good way, because there's several ways, I guess, is a better way of saying it.
Okay, I don't think I've ever asked that question.
So there isn't an official tally. The closest one we have is we have some information at our, that landlords, rental property owners will contact us and say, hey, I've got units available, so send clients our way. Some will do that. And as we get those, I'll call it, you know, waving the marketing flag our way, we do record those. We put those in a book for those who are not technologically savvy.
Yeah, I didn't mean to, yeah, if there is an old-fashioned book.
Right. And so I will say on a weekly basis, we probably have at least a few folks who do stop down to peruse through that and see.
I think they used to have that, like a binder down at Heritage, didn't
Same,
they?
got the
Now
same
that I'm
one.
thinking about it.
So that's still a method that works. We've also pivoted in recent years too, as people are looking, and we have that one-on-one orientation session with them about your vouchers now out on the street. When we hear about what they're looking for, what school district they might be looking for, that's sort of, I'll call it pseudo relocation specialist type assistance. We'll email them as we hear about, you know, maybe a call comes in a week later and from a landlord that says, hey, I've got a 2-bedroom that's at this location. And then we'll email the 2 or 3 clients that I'm working with that, you know, are looking there, you know. So, I mean, we have a little bit of that. That's sometimes the most useful thing because it's a little bit more targeted. But then aside from all of that stuff, there is a information sheet that we have that has a lot of the complexes, a lot of units that year in and year out they're looking for, and they accept Section 8. So that's also out there for them, and some, you know that, you know, those are some places, and we go over that with folks, that's something you can look for. And then on top of that, there's the IowaHousingSearch.org, which is a website for those that are more technologically savvy, and you can put in zip code, and, you know, you can put in search criteria of what you're looking for, and that helps you narrow down. And that actually goes beyond just Davenport borders, which is another thing that with vouchers, in theory, someone could move to Bettendorf, someone could move to Rock Island, someone could move to Parkview, someone could move outside our whole area, right? And so if you're able to or interested in those things, there's a whole other batch of resources out there in those communities too. And so
Does the information on there, on that website correlate with what's in this book?
no, because the IowaHousingSearch.org isn't run by us. So that's,
Right, so then how does one find the information regarding the stuff in your book?
oh, they call us. Yeah,
So if someone doesn't know anything about anything, but, you know, we're in a day and age where everything is just
at your fingertips,
at
right?
their fingertips, you know, they would do the search of, you know, low affordable housing or voucher housing in the city of Davenport. And so that stuff is not going to come up.
Several ways at it. In short, the stuff that's written in the book doesn't necessarily, it right now is in an electronic form. We talked a month or two ago about there's a software module that we could purchase that allows us to compile information from land. In fact, it would even allow landlords to enter it into the system, sort of like Iowa Housing Search, which is really at the behest of landlords. I mean, if I'm a landlord and I choose not to enter it there, then my information isn't in there. I have to proactively reach out to you to enter it, or proactively put it on that website. This was a software system that would allow folks to do that, and our experience has been landlords don't often call us just out of the blue with this information. They do occasionally. I shouldn't say they don't often. Depends on what you call often. I mean, we'll get some in some weeks, and then I think we'll have a month go by and we don't hear from anybody. So back to your question, the thought was that we could automate that somewhat so that it encourages landlords to enter that. They can do it at midnight if they're thinking of it, at home, and they just got word that day that a tenant was leaving, and so they could input that vacancy information into our software that would roll into what we can do. And instead of a book where we're hand printing things and putting it in a binder, we can just print them out for folks when they come in. So we have an up-to-date, you're looking for what? For 2 bedrooms and any other search criteria? And then, we could hand them almost like a specialized 3 pages worth, single-spaced of stuff, that they could look at. So that's our goal. So I'll tell you that's kind of where we're going, but
So there isn't anything that you could have a link or a tab or a button where the city of Davenport can ask all the different departments or whatever one to go.
no, not really. So separate from our office, there is our rental housing folks at Public Works, Neighborhood Services Department. They have a list of landlords who have a rental license. So, but yeah, I know what you're asking for is, there isn't a one-stop shop where we've heard from landlords that want to participate. We know which ones have vacancies, and we know which ones have valid rental licenses, and those systems don't all talk is the problem. So, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's not just an easy answer. The Iowa Housing Search, and not to bore you with this, I'm just brainstorming with this because it's a valid question across the country with people trying to find units and trying to find an easier way for them to find units.
Everybody's more conscious about saving the trees and paper, and
Yeah.
everybody's more have access to technology and looking stuff up. So.
Right. And what we found, I mean, the good news with that is we do find that, I don't know if I would say the majority of households, I just listed 4 or 5 or 6, there's probably more out there too, where they do look and find units. And then through our orientation session, they know your best bet is always just to reach out to them and see if they have a vacancy and if they're accepting Section 8, right? And so you'd have to do that anyway to get some of the paperwork filled out and bring it back to us, so there's always going to be that reach out component. But you're right. I mean, the challenge can be that depending on what you're looking for, if you set your search criteria so complicated that nothing is showing up, you get frustrated, right? Or if you check on the first 3 or 4 places and you don't ask the right questions on the front end, which we try to help prompt with, but admittedly, sometimes people don't, they get frustrated because they've got out to look at a place and they look great, but then they set the rents $150 too high and they won't be able to work with the program, and so there's just a lot of, things that can go wrong, and unfortunately they do, and it delays things, but
Well, especially with, the way the economy is now, I just feel like a lot more people who really don't know anything about how, Section 8 or voucher programs or how any of that works. They might be the first timer, I guess, applying for these or even looking, for these housings or whatever. They don't know where to go or what to do.
right. Yep, no, you're exactly right. And in our orientation session, I'm not going to say we solve all those questions, but we do try to hit that. That's what takes some time on the front end. When I mentioned that we've got 40 vouchers coming in, that's the one-on-one sessions and the group sessions and the kind of, you know, educating, if you will, bringing up to speed some tips and tricks, things to look for, and refreshing that if they forget it and they get frustrated 2 weeks later and they call us, you know, that's the process, and that's what kind of happens a lot, but we'll try.
Didn't
Try
your
harder.
pool expand a little bit when you did that incentive program for landlord?
It did, yeah. That added another, what was it, 50 some units, I think, over that, to the program that hadn't been Section 8 units before, so there's 50 more units out on the street now that. So yeah, it's, you know, sometimes one step forward and 2 steps back, but we're trying. I think we're okay.
2 of the at-large guys stuck their heads in, I saw.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, no, that certainly was good, and if they could get those to talk, I don't know how much, you know, like the library knows to help people, because a lot of people go there to use computers, you know, down at DHS or other agencies that are out there to help people, you know, if they know how to access things. You know, information is important for people, but learning how to use, how to get to it is often a frustrating step. Yeah, I know a lot of people go to the library because internet's expensive. Yeah. Okay, anybody else have any questions or anything? I just looked at the calendar. I think the third Monday of May is the 16th. I had that on my calendar for this month, but for some reason, the last 2 months, I haven't received the notice. I saw the responses that Gary and Joyce and Leslie gave back, and I knew when it was, but I'm here. But I did get your note today, Bruce. But for some reason, the original meeting notice the last 2 months didn't show up, but I'm on the list. And I even checked my spam, which I get a lot of stuff in spam, most of which belongs there, but sometimes other things go in there that I want to read,
Yeah.
but they weren't in there, so anyway. So I'll mark my calendar and plan to be here unless I get a better offer. Okay, anybody else have anything? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you, folks. Have a nice month.